The Austrian Fairy Tale: How Non-Aggression Magically Ends Conflict. Introduction. The Austrian School of Economics tells a comforting bedtime story. If everyone just respects property rights and abstains from aggression, conflict disappears. In this fairy tale, thieves are the only villains, and once the bad guys are gone, society lives happily ever after in voluntary exchange. It is a story fit for a children's book, but not for economics. Conflict does not vanish simply because no one swings a club. It is written into the very structure of scarcity and opportunity cost. When capital is hoarded in wasteful ways, society pays the bill in lost productivity, and no magical incantation about non-aggression can cover that debt. The Austrian misdiagnosis of conflict. For Mises and Rothbard, property rights are like an enchanted shield. Secure them, and all conflict disappears, except for the occasional intrusion of an aggressor. This tidy worldview has all the sophistication of a cartoon morality play: hero versus villain, voluntary versus coercive, good versus evil. But real economics is not a Disney script. Conflict does not arise because some people are mean, it arises because resources are locked into bad uses, and better alternatives are excluded. The Austrian theory waves away this tension by pretending opportunity cost does not exist. Opportunity cost is the true source of conflict. When property is controlled in a way that produces massive opportunity costs, society suffers. Land left idle while others go hungry, patents that block innovation, or rent seekers who profit without producing, all these impose economic losses on everyone else. This is what generates pressure for conflict, not aggression in itself. Aggression is only the symptom. The disease is misallocation. Austrians, by sanctifying Lockean property rights, essentially canonized the hoarder as a saint and cast the starving as the sinner. It is economic theology, not analysis. Property hoarding and entrenched inefficiency. The Austrian romance with Lockean property rights sanctifies hoarding, the right to let resources rot so long as you once mix your labor with them. This is less a theory of economics than a justification for medieval feudal lords in new clothing. And like feudalism, it guarantees conflict, because society cannot eternally tolerate being shackled by wasted capital. The Austrian fantasy imagines the world will politely bow before the hoarder's fence. In reality, history shows the fences eventually get torn down. Productive competition as moral conflict. The real story of economics is not the absence of conflict but the redirection of it. Productive competition is conflict, a moral conflict between rival visions of how resources should be used. Two firms battling in the market are not engaged in peaceful cooperation, as the Austrians pretend, but in an evolutionary struggle to prove whose use of capital generates more value. Each competitor is essentially declaring, "My vision of the future is superior to yours, and I will prove it by outproducing you." This is conflict, but it is the good kind, the conflict that reallocates resources to their most productive uses. Conflict is evolutionary feedback. Conflict, then, is not the failure of markets but their essence. Productive conflict channels rivalry into innovation, efficiency, and progress. Destructive conflict arises only when property hoarding and entrenched inefficiency generate opportunity costs too large for society to ignore. The difference is not between aggression and non-aggression, as the Austrian bedtime story insists, but between waste and productivity, stagnation and evolution. Conclusion. The Austrian school offers a fairy tale in which non-aggression magically erases conflict and property rights are eternal and unquestionable. But real economics is harsher and more honest. Conflict is inevitable because opportunity costs are inevitable. The Austrian attempt to exile conflict from economics is not just wrong, it is childish. True peace is not the absence of aggression, but the evolutionary transformation of conflict into productive competition. The only happily ever after worth telling is the one where resources are wrested away from waste and put to use in building the future.